We're live. Ladies and gentlemen, I will now call to order our July council meeting. This will begin the second year that this council and mayor have had together. It's been a good first 12 months. We'll try to carry on tonight, and I'll recognize Councilwoman Sheila Jones with our invocation.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we just thank you for another day, dear Lord. We just thank you for what you continue to do in our life, dear Lord. Dear Lord, we just ask you to be in the midst of this afternoon here at the meeting, dear Lord. Dear Lord, just be with us and let us do what is pleasing in your eyes and for the town of Blackstone, dear Lord. In no other name but yours. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Jones. We now invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to thank everybody for coming on this hot, muggy evening. We do have a fairly lengthy agenda. I will ask when we get to visitors or delegations that if there's a group here, they have one designated spokesperson, and I will ask 3 minutes or less tonight if we can. Our first item on the agenda, we have 3 scheduled hearings. They are mainly I guess you say boilerplate. We have an ordinance of vacation for Babbs Lane. This pertains to the town is selling 21 acres in its industrial park to S. Walker Construction.
The town does have an agreement with S. Walker Construction to convey 21.5 acres and an additional 1.7 acres, which is a portion of Babbs Lane. You guys already had a public hearing declaring a surplus and a public hearing accepting their offer. The closing attorney, the settlement agent, Ken Walden, has asked that the town also consider a public hearing to formally abandon that which is designated as Babbs Lane. It's not in the state system, but Ken's opinion is that since it is or was dedicated for public use as part of the original subdivision plat, that he would like action from council to formally abandon that, in addition to the 2 public hearings we've already had.
And just for all these benefits, the 21 acres that S. Walker Construction is buying is in addition to 13 acres they bought about 2 years ago. And Babbs, that end of Babbs Lane, does that bisect those 2 properties?
No, it does not. It runs parallel to those 2 properties, but bisects it from the former Gravett property.
Okay,
And I
very
think we all have the same owner, so, on both sides of the road.
Okay. Well, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone to speak for or against this ordinance of vacation? This is the town just vacating that portion of Babbs Lane, the rear portion. For or against? Seeing and hearing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Members of council, any questions or motions?
The additional acreage that is in the right-of-way, is that in the purchase price?
It would be, no, his purchase offer was per acre, so it would be the combined acreage times his purchase offer.
So that will increase?
It will increase.
Gotcha.
Yep.
What was this price per acre?
Gosh, it was like $1,800 an acre. If I'm not mistaken.
What is council's pleasure? Ms. Hasbrook has moved to approve the ordinance of vacation, adopt it. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Jones is second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have a conditional use permit.
The conditional use permit request from NEC Investments LLC. The property in question is 112 West Irvin Street. It's the former Mason's Hall. If everybody's familiar with that, it's approximately at the corner of Brown Street and West Irvin. You see some diagrams here that were prepared with the assistance from DBI. The applicant intends to put 4 multifamily units. Our ordinances do require in the business districts to have a conditional use permit for apartments upstairs and downstairs. It used to only be for the downstairs portion. Now it's for both upstairs and downstairs. And I think that was applicable because many people were concerned about parking.
Right.
But this is one of these instances where, as you can see, there's a parking diagram as well, that he can provide the parking on site.
The applicant, according to Blackstone zoning ordinance, if you put an apartment downtown, you must have 2 off-street parking spaces or get a variance from town council, which has happened for the Trend Building comes to mind.
Correct.
But Mr. Nash does have the ample land from probably more than 8 spots. So I'll declare the public hearing open. This was recommended by the Planning Commission, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Any members of the audience with any comments or questions about converting the old Masonic Lodge into 4 apartments? A lot of apartments going up in Blackstone.
Question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Richie Avalez.
That's right. My wife owns the building right beside the property. And I'm just wondering, so this conditional use permit that's being sought, how prevalent is that with existing properties in the downtown? Is that?
More and more prevalent. I mean, this council in the last 2 years that I can recall has probably granted about 4 or 5 such permits to downtown properties because the zoning ordinance does require in the downtown area, if you're gonna have apartments anywhere downtown. It's kind of funny because in the old days, everybody had apartments downtown. But as society changed 30, 40 years ago, the zoning changed. So now anytime anybody wants to have apartments downtown, primarily because of the parking, there's a conditional use permit required. Mr. Norbeck, how many, we just did one for the Flower and Foliage Building, the old florist building beside the post office. This is proposed.
We have the Trend Building, of
Trend.
course, the Chinese restaurant or the former Pearl Restaurant.
That's correct.
And if you remember, Mr. Bowers' development, above the gun store.
That's
You know what
correct.
I'm talking about? Barrel Grocery Building.
Yes,
So those, there have been
Tim
other
Bauer.
requests.
yes.
The parking has usually been the question.
Well, that's one of the biggest concerns that we have.
Sure.
Because we've got a business, an exercise studio there, and a lot of her participants who come, obviously, they take advantage of that parking as much as possible. So, we've got a concern that once these are occupied, that will severely limit, I don't know. I mean, I'm here really just to kind of get an understanding of what's being sought and see what kind of an impact that's gonna have on us. I think regardless of who's gonna be taking over that property and what they do with it, it's gonna have some kind of an impact on us.
Sure, sure. And I can just, I don't mind speaking on this regard. My family owns the newspaper building which we do have a large parking lot. And a lot of times, there's a funeral, say at Shiloh Baptist, where we have overruns. We don't rely on a lot of walk-in business, so we'll let people overflow into our lot and it doesn't really cause a problem. So that might become something that could happen, and we would gladly, I can speak for myself, would not mind the overflow into our building. But that's certainly, I know a lot of Christie's customers or patrons utilize the street, and then the next spot is usually behind them, beside the Masonic Lodge.
Right, yeah, a lot of her customers are older individuals, and so they park as close as possible so they don't have to walk as far. But, again, I do understand and recognize that this is just a changing area.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Mr. Avalez. Anyone else tonight, any questions, concerns? It was recommended unanimously by the Planning Commission.
That's correct.
I'll close the hearing. Any questions or concerns or motions from members of council?
So moved.
Mr. Moving to approve.
Move to approve.
Miller has moved to approve the conditional use permits. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Thompson has seconded. Any further discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote, starting with, is it Ms. Jones' turn tonight? Or sorry, with Ms. Jones.
Aye.
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 Motion carries 6-0 with 1 abstention. And our last advertised hearing, this has been a big topic for over 18 months, but we're trying to get all our I's dotted and T's crossed, and this is the rental property maintenance ordinance. Our attorney, Tessie Bacon, is here tonight with some revisions. They're in your packet. They appear to be more or less technical in nature, nothing substantial.
And she's gonna be referring to this map that's at y'all's desk.
Yes.
That's correct. The town of Blackstone has had the rental property maintenance ordinance for quite some time. I believe at least what the old code, the code we're trying to update refers to is at least, I believe, 1999. And so what we are doing here is we actually are not adopting a new ordinance, but we are just updating the town of Blackstone ordinance that we have to bring it into compliance with the current code and also with the current regulations that are there too. So a few things that are, and it's not changing anything really substantive, other than probably the biggest thing is lengthens the time between when a building inspector could go in and inspect a building from 2 years to 4 years. So in other words, if the building inspector comes in, does the initial inspection, and the rental unit passes, then that building inspector cannot come in there for 4 years.
At least 4 years.
Yes, that's
It'd be
correct.
longer if they're, let's face it, there's so much rental property in Blackstone, if someone is known as being, look, they're first class, they keep good units, apartments or homes, whatever, chances are the building inspector would be utilized maybe longer than 4 years, or if someone just calls and has some complaint, I guess.
That's correct, yes. Now, if somebody has a complaint, that's a different ballgame, but this more refers to, the periodic inspections that would be just for the rental units.
Okay.
And then, in addition to that, on your all's desk too, there is the zoning map. What the current code requires for whatever reason is that there be designated zones, rental inspection zones. And so what it's being proposed here is that, there be a zone A and a zone B, but it does encompass all of the town. So all of the rental inspection units in the town would be included with this, which isn't anything new. The other thing that's included with the ordinance as well is the appeals board policy, which is required, just, town council stating this is how we're gonna determine the appeals board. In addition to that, tonight, you all may wanna consider adopting that appeals board too, pursuant to the policy that's attached.
You recommend, is it 5 people each?
That's correct.
Maybe one from each election ward would be the way to do it? That'd be, Mr. Runebeck, or just 5 at large?
I think you can do 5 at large, I think it's permitted to.
Okay.
We talked a little earlier about either using the Board of Zoning Appeals or the Planning Commission as that body. I don't think the Board of Zoning Appeals is a good fit, because they're appointed by the judge, and so we probably just need to
Okay.
stay on that.
Planning
I think
Commission?
appointing the Planning Commission would be a solution.
You could double their pay with
It's
that.
not, they're kind of clustered in one board, but it's not viable.
What's the purpose of zone A and B? I mean, that just seems,
It is just something that's required under the code. So basically, what the requirement is that a whole town cannot be one zone, but a whole town can be 2 zones. I don't know. It's something that the code requires, and then there's some
code or
case,
state
the
code?
state
Okay,
code, yes. And then there's some case law in it as well.
Okay.
but it's no favoritism as to zone B is inspected more than A.
No, as far as I'm concerned with the law, each zone is treated exactly the same. There's no difference. It's just a requirement that's imposed by the
So
law.
we just say everything west of Main Street and everything.
Before we go into public hearing, clarifying one rumor that I think I discussed with you a couple months ago. If Billy Colburn lives at Maplewood Apartments, and has been there a year or so and decides to move, when Billy Colburn vacates Maplewood Apartments, does that mean, oh, Billy's leaving, so we gotta follow the code and have someone come inspect it? That's not,
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
So what the law says is that you must have a valid certificate of exemption or a temporary exemption of compliance, but that does not certainly mean that every time somebody vacates it, you would have it re-inspected.
good. 'Cause some
So,
landlords are understandably worried, if you own 20 units or so, and you have people that leave every 6 or 7 or 8 months or a year, most leases around here, I think, have run about a year or so,
Yes.
it could be costly.
no, but that's not what's required.
Good.
This is more about, the periodic inspections, the initial inspections, and then the necessary follow-ups to bring them into compliance. And then, once that 4-year compliance period is up, it would be more inspections.
Very good. I'd like to go into public hearing at this time, and just before we, just another little fact, I think it's important for the audience to know these things. Blackstone is, every town's got its unique characteristics. We are 65% renter occupied, and that's of the 2010 census. If you think about the number of apartments that have been added since 2010, like Lunenburg Lofts, and others that are on the books right now, the 2020 census, which will be taken about, we'll get the results in 2021, I expect that ratio to increase. It's just a fact. It doesn't make us better, worse, or whatever, but it does mean if you have a rental property maintenance ordinance, it means it takes a lot of time to enforce it. So this is a big deal, and there have been some rental units in the past in Blackstone that have been, let's just say, subpar. At this time, I'll open public hearing. Anyone to speak for or against this ordinance, which we're just trying to tweak to protect the residents of Blackstone and not work a hardship on the landlords, but just hold them accountable.
And
yes.
Excuse
It's all right,
me,
it's all right.
one more thing I would like to add in addition to, adopting the things that we have, and of course, I'll make sure that council does that if they decide to do that tonight. In addition, we do need to, I'm asking for council's approval also to advertise to adopt the 2015 edition. It wouldn't affect anything today,
Right.
but when we adopted the 2012 edition of the property maintenance code earlier this year, we had known that, this was coming, that Mr. Lewis is requesting now that we do adopt the 2015 edition too. So just something to think about to advertise for next meeting.
And when you say the 2015 edition, you're referring to the state?
State property maintenance code.
Very good, very good.
DNET had confronted me with concerns that several of the inspections that had been formed already, there were already people living in the houses. They had already moved in.
Well, I must defer to Ms. Yvonne. I have not been on any of the inspections. Is that the case?
There have been about 10 inspections conducted thus far.
And Mr. Lewis said that there had been several that people had already moved in prior to the inspection.
In some cases, they moved in maybe prior to an inspection, and in other cases, the property had failed, and before he could get back to re-inspect, they had moved in.
And I believe he said from this point forward that if there's somebody in there, they fail immediately.
Yes.
So, just so everybody knows, if you have a property and you haven't been inspected, and you're on the list to be inspected, don't let them move in.
What happens is you've got a tenant that's itching to get in,
That's-
and
what's the
and
wait
we're at the
time
county's
typically?
mercy. That's,
The policy says 15 days, so pretty much if you know that someone's moving out by the first, you can call and request the inspection to happen as soon as they're out, if that's the case. But the actual policy says there's a period of 15 days.
how is he deciding where to start? How does one start? Okay, well, I'm in Blackstone, I want to start to enforce your ordinance. Where do they start?
We've been, sending out because we're new, we've been sending out the information to the landlords, and landlords are contacting us to schedule their inspections. Right now, that's how we pretty much get it started. So there's a process that we have to go through. For landlords who have not requested it, they're gonna be receiving another letter soon.
Right.
And then pretty much after that, we'll have to follow up on what the process is for those who are not.
But if I'm a landlord that I think I'm doing a good job and no one's really complaining about me, I don't know why I'd want to call the county and say I want to be inspected because the county's charging $50 to the town, which we're passing on to the landlord per unit. So if I'm a landlord out there, I'm gonna just lay low and say, look, I'm doing my job until someone complains or it's my time comes up. Why would I want to go and voluntarily write a check for $50 times how many units I have? Or so I'm just curious.
So it's helping the town if the landlords contact us now because we're just getting started. So if the landlords don't, because we're still asking landlords to sign up, there is a form that we have for landlords to fill out so that we can know who actually has a rental property in the town because we don't necessarily know who to contact for all the rentals in Blackstone. So the first step was landlords fill out this form for us and return it to the town. And then we continue to go from that point.
Okay. All right, we'll now open a public hearing. Let's open a public hearing for the public. Any citizens, or I see some hands on the back row. I believe we might have a few property owners in Blackstone. Might have some tenants in Blackstone. Anybody, this is your chance to speak up. If we're going to tweak this thing, get it right, this is a big night. I see Mr. Cameron Yancey.
What's gonna happen if the inspector can't get there in the 15-day period, and I'm ready for people to move in? Is the town gonna reimburse me $100, $200 that I lose in the rent if he can't get there in that point in time?
My understanding, if he doesn't get there within 15 days, the inspection, he doesn't get it. I mean,
There will be no inspection.
yeah, there'll be no inspection. He has 15 days to complete it.
But what if they wanna move in before that 15 days? They have to wait? That's not
That's
right.
what Dean's saying from now on.
My understanding for what Dean explained to me just a couple of days ago, because I asked the question for someone, if that time period does not work to get somebody in there, what are the landlords to do? And his response pretty much was that our landlords may have to plan for some extended time during that first month when people are moving, trying to move in. So pretty much, that's why we're saying 15 days is, and the 15 days is to get it scheduled. So if you notice someone's moving out on the 1st, you call us the 15th of the previous month to make sure that you're on the calendar to come and have your property inspected. Then we will come in, because you still have to leave time for those who do have to fix things on their property. A lot of the properties that we've had currently don't have a lot that they have to get done, so they've been able to do it in a day or two, and their people are still able to move in. That has not really been a problem yet, so I just encourage our landlords to make sure that we have your information so that we can just go through the process. This is still a new program. We're working with you however we can, so I don't think that it will be a major issue. Most times, if there has not been a time yet that someone has requested that I'm aware of, and we have not been able to meet the request.
So if I evict somebody on a Friday and I have somebody that wants to move in on a Monday,
That does not allow that 15-day period of time. I would have to let Dean address that to answer that question, because I don't know the answer to that. Because that's the policy that we currently have.
others have to motherfucker rent.
I understand.
Yeah, it's tough.
And remember, it's only the one time, I mean, for that initial inspection,
So who keeps the certificate for the 4 years? Do I keep that or do y'all?
the landlords keep it. We have a copy on file, but the landlords receive, the landlords or the property managers, because some property managers are holding all the information for their landlords.
Does the county also have a rental property maintenance ordinance that they also enforce among areas outside the towns that we know of?
That they know of.
Because Dean Lewis is one man, and a county of 16,000.
Yeah, I don't think our county, to be honest, is ready to enforce something like this simply because of the manpower.
Right.
Yeah, and they,
Because 15 days, I mean, and I completely agree with them on the back. I mean, if rent's $800, that's $400 right there that you'll lose. So, I don't know,
Yeah, 450.
yeah. I just,
Some people move out. They're
Right.
I had somebody move out Friday, and I had somebody move Monday.
Any suggestions?
I think it is still a 30-day
hard.
notice.
I
for
mean,
eviction.
we don't,
Make a rule that fits all circumstances.
right.
We're at Dean's mercy, you know. we
and
don't
that's
have
the
a
problem. It's not a town
trained
employee
person
that we
working
can't
for
say, hey, Yvonne, let them just, move in and then we inspect it or something. This is, the dean has strictly said, if they're in, they failed.
Yeah, but that's not a dean rule either. That's really according to the actual program.
The town program.
Right.
So Dean, the end-all, be-all on inspections? I mean,
Do we have anybody that could, like?
We have an alternative. We actually used an alternative when Dean was out. So if something happens and we really need to get somebody in, that is an option for us to get another inspector. Meanwhile, the town manager has given me permission to try to work on getting certified so that I will be able to assist, but that's some time for that to come.
what I'm saying is, if Dean says no, and then you have to appeal it, I mean, how long are you looking at then?
Getting a meeting together, probably advertising the meeting, you're talking, looking at weeks.
How
Problem.
much is there?
Well, let me ask this, Mr. Van Norbeck, and I know these two gentlemen in the back, they're good property owners. I've never heard an unkind word about their properties. We know they're property owners now, I'll be honest with you, there's enough rental property in Blackstone, not to pick and choose here, so don't misinterpret me, but there are some obvious places that are of concern that we have heard about in the past. You can ride by some places and go, wow, I wonder what that's like on the inside. I mean, can't we start there is that unfair? Is it?
I'm certain we can
Vac-
communicate with if they're vacant, communicate with the landlords and say,
Right.
hey, guys. Like in the East End, we're working on those kinds of things. We're doing the inspections over there. That's gonna alleviate some of that
Right,
neighborhood.
that's
We're
true,
already doing
true.
that. But I don't think it's a problem to try to continue getting up with property owners, because it is once every 4 years. You don't have to do it on
Right.
a terribly regular basis. And it's an inconvenience. I mean, it is for the landlords. I get it. I've got rental properties, and it would be difficult to schedule stuff. I get it.
Inconvenience is one thing, money out of pocket is another one. I mean, it's, especially if you've just bought it, if you've acquired a new property where you're trying to, pay a bank or whatever on it. I saw Mr. Yancey's hand up one more time.
Is there any talk of You know, if you pass 5 getting off the list, or is there a list of, you know, bad properties kind of thing, where, all right, it's kind of redundant, all right, cameras are overly done each time for people to move in. You know, do I gotta waste $50 every time, knowing I do the right thing, you know, everything's perfect every time somebody moves in? You know, instead of calling the guy, wasting my time, wasting my money, that, hey, I'm spending extra money to get these things in good order, now I gotta waste $50 more, and maybe a week or two, and have, you know, rent, you know, whatever. Is there any, you know, maybe getting off the list at some point, if you know, I got 21, if I've done 5 or 6, and there's not even one thing wrong with any of them, hey, is there a chance that, you know, you get off the list? You know, somebody else who fails a bunch, stay on the list, even though you get looked at even more. I mean, is there any talk of that? Or is that possible?
I don't know if it is possible. We'd have to follow whatever the state code, and obviously what Tessie would permit. If we can do a representative sample, I don't know.
One thing about the town is always, this is Blackstone anywhere, towns are able to act quicker than counties, it just is. And if we did have someone certified, how long is the certification process, Yvonne, yeah, I know that, is it a year? I mean, if we had someone here at the town, it would be,
It doesn't, well, considering I have already started the certification, I think there's one more test that I actually have to do. I'm not sure, it would not allow me to become a building code.
right,
So I don't know if I have all of the same authorization that Dean does. I
okay,
don't know that part.
okay.
But it does allow at least to become an assistant, a technical assistant, to be able to assist with the inspections and have that authority to do that part.
Does council want to adopt something tonight, or do we want to, and we've been dragging on this a while, we've been trying to get it right. Do we want to measure?
We really haven't talked about it as a council. It's always been.
True, committee.
Well, that or just a special meeting for property owners and Yvonne herself, which is fine, but I think there's so many questions, and I would love it if we had an in-house you said you could go in, you couldn't be building code inspector, but I would feel certain that once you get your certification, you could go and do a rental inspection. I mean,
Yeah, that's my understanding. I just spoke to them.
and if someone's in-house, I mean, give you a day or two, I mean, and it won't at least be 15
And
days.
save our property owners $50 a unit
Who
perhaps.
states that if, like say he said he's got somebody moves out on Friday, well, somebody moves out on Friday and moves in, who's to say it automatically fails if somebody moves in before it can get inspected?
Dean said it to my face.
Is that in a code somewhere?
I'm sorry, what was the question about?
Now, if the landlord has somebody that moves out on a Friday, but somebody moves in on Monday, how do they automatically fail? Where is it? Is that written in a code somewhere? Or is that just based on his personal preference?
Well, actually, to be honest, Dean would not know that took place without the landlord contacting us.
So as long as they contact you and you know that somebody moved out and somebody new moved in, that person or family can still move in, and can it be inspected at a later date?
Well, the thing is, we have been trying to figure out.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, and I apologize, and we know that this is a tasking program. We knew it was gonna be very challenging. So the town has to come up with a plan that works for everybody. And I do apologize to those who do well, because we feel like all properties that we have inspected so far are by those landlords who are keeping their properties for the most part. But we do have to figure out a way to reach the landlords who are not doing their job. And the only way we can do that right now is asking over in DMV side, when people leave, then they notify us, or notify me to let me know that they're leaving a rental property so that we can follow up. But even with that, it's no promise right now that we'll catch the landlord in time for them to inspect. So all that's doing is putting them on our list so that when it happens again, we'll be able, on some people, if they're not trying to do the right thing, it's going to become a legal issue. That's the bottom line. So we're trying to prevent legal issues and work with everybody who's working with us so that we can have the program. We're not trying to make it harder on landlords, but I think just trying to get this program going and get everybody on board is becoming, can be challenging. Yeah. Yes.
Madam Clerk?
Go ahead.
My thing is, I think we need to kind of wait until we get the manpower to make sure we got this thing in line right. I mean, because we can't look at a group of landlords on this side and say, okay, well, they got this going on, and then you got these landlords on this side and just say, okay, we're not gonna mess with them, but we're gonna mess with these ones. So we gotta make sure that we, doing this thing the right way, cause it can cause some problems in the long run if you kinda, just targeting certain ones.
Yeah, we're fair.
And it's a policy.
Yeah, I can't say that I feel that we're targeting anybody in particular to make it an unfair situation at all, because we really can't tell when properties are gonna be vacant, so we're operating based
But
off
not
of
now, I
that.
guess I'm hearing what I kinda said about, if these landlords doing okay, like for them, I mean, they doing everything right. And you may have a few that's not doing everything right. I mean, you kinda
Yeah,
have to.
maybe that would be something that Tessie would be able to help us for those who are, and we find out that their properties, after maybe 5 properties have been, passed, and we know that they're doing fine, be able to, I can't say we won't ever come back, but, you won't have to worry about the every 4, because right now it's every 4 years. So maybe it'd be another 8 years, or, however we can actually work it out, because I don't actually know that answer on how to do that right now. But
Yeah,
we
'cause
will
just like-
look into it, for sure.
Like he said, he got several properties. Is it fair to them to be charged a fee of $50 every time that one of their properties is being inspected? But if
No.
the policy states,
And actually, if you have that many properties, there's a percentage. We won't be, if you have 12, 15 properties, we won't be inspecting all of your properties. There's a percentage for that.
Property, when you talk about units under one roof,
Units.
Yeah, because you said last month that somebody has, just say, 10 apartment units.
Right,
You're not inspecting all 10 of them, maybe
Right.
2 of them.
right.
So it wouldn't be all of y'all's units, it may be 2.
so if
Oh, you're talking about, you all have,
They own apartment buildings.
oh, okay.
Take a
Well, for
representative
sure, we're
sample.
not doing all of the apartment buildings, for sure. I'm sorry, I thought you had individual housing. But no, we only do a percentage, so it would be most likely 2. After we see that those 2 have, passed, then that will take care of that.
I could just take on the fee and leave it there and whole lot.
Mr. Miller had a question.
Yes, sir.
Can we table this until we, as council, learn a little bit more about this?
And you become certified?
I don't think that's my call, but I believe that because we have started, and because what Tessie has is really just an update, I believe that we need to continue with the program, because if we keep pushing it back or holding off, we're gonna find ourselves right back at the same place. And I think we have enough, we know enough we've been doing inspections have gone well. The only challenge has been, how do we reach all of our landlords and get them on our list?
I haven't got anything from anybody about it.
So, maybe you could give me your information.
Why would I come to y'all and voluntarily give it to you and pay?
I mean, it's a good faith.
That's just something else that'll hinder the
really.
program.
Yeah, so,
But I still have a problem with us relying so much on a county building inspector that we're at his mercy at every turn. So if we're gonna have to pay somebody to do a building inspection, can we look into somebody that we can put on our side for?
Jennifer
even if it's
Daniel
just
was not a
part-time?
certified building inspector, and she was in charge of the program and actively engaged in you too. weren't- I'm sorry, Jennifer Beck.
I don't think Jennifer Beck ever conducted the inspections. I think the state code, in order to do this, does require a certified. We had talked about working with Noel Shackleton
Yeah.
or other people, but none of those folks that we knew locally could qualify to do these inspections, because you had to be a certified building official or building inspector. You had to have the state training
Oh, wow.
in order
Okay.
to do that. So, we've been at
Can we
it
advertise?
for a while. Does he have the final say?
Going through training for it, so.
She's ultimately going to get there where we can do it in-house, but it takes time. We have to do the inspections. We have to learn, and
and inspections take.
Could someone at the 10 level just basically document what they've discovered and give it to the certified person who is Dean Lewis and say, look, saved you a trip, here's some photos, here's what we found, there's no smoke detectors, that sort of thing?
we're happy to help. We had an incident a couple weeks ago when Dean was in the hospital. I mean, literally was in the hospital. He had burned himself. I don't know. He had some kind of an accident or something like that, and so he wasn't available to do the inspections. And so we want to try to avoid those kinds of things. We don't want to put undue hardship. We want the power cut on. We want that power on, Jack,
Sure.
and for obvious reasons. And we don't want to delay it too terribly much.
Well, we're
But it is a policy that the council wanted to move forward with, and we're there. I think it's been on the books since 1999.
Yeah.
And Jennifer enforced it, I think, pretty heavily for 6-7 years there, and then it kind of backed off, and so it's been on the books to do.
Right.
I just don't like the layover period. That's my big concern. It's not the $50 because you ease that worry with, hey, it's only a percentage of how many properties you had. My concern is the 15-day period.
But I don't know what else to do. And I don't know if we have a better solution. If they call on Friday, we can't right now. Dean, you need to come over here right now. Dean may be on vacation.
Well, plus he's inspecting new construction, anytime new construction takes place, he's gotta go inspect new construction. He's gotta issue certificates of occupancy. He's got a variety of things he has to do.
I don't know of a better solution, but maybe there is a better solution.
What is your pleasure, members of council? Do you wish to table? Do you wish to adopt tonight and continue to crawl forward as we're doing? We're doing slow and steady wins a race. We're at least doing some units, and as Ms. Jackson Wilson just relayed to us, that people are passing. So what is your pleasure? Do you want to adopt this and we can?
As Ms. Jones said, though, it's not fair for those that are on the list now, so we don't even have our database built.
Right.
And so I don't think we're prepped enough to be fair. I'm going to say it because I'm in Rotary, to be fair to all concerned. I don't think we're able to do that yet. I don't think it's not fair for Cameron's apartments to be inspected, and Cal just said that he's not on the list, so we don't have a database yet.
Do you want to continue to build the database? Do you want to continue to build the
I
database?
think we need to work on getting all of our properties on the list as if they're rentals. Hopefully, Ms. Wilson will get her inspection certification, and I would feel a lot better. Number one, then we'll collect the $50, and if we have to give her a raise, whatever, to do these inspections,
Are we talking about suspending the program altogether? Not doing any inspection?
it's not fair for some to be inspected and some not. I mean, how is it fair to? We don't even know who's rental right
In my
now.
opinion, I don't think the program's fair to start with.
Agree.
I don't think the program is getting the desired effect, because we're not reaching out into the really specific problems that are there. We're hitting a cross-section of the issues, okay? Smoke detectors, windows, means of egress, and all that sort of thing. We're not addressing significant health issues, lead-based paint. We're not addressing the mold issues. They're growing.
We're not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to do that. We're not
certified.
right.
We're not certified to do this inspection. I think personally, this is me, I think we need to continue the process so we can get them, as many as we can in place, and just keep on working and trying to perfect it, okay? I promise you, there's nobody being singled out.
Oh, no.
and all that.
No, no.
But if we've gone into this thing and we've had so many people, there's probably been, I don't know, 24 inspections already where people have been billed the $50, that ultimately, do we need to reimburse them?
So since we started, has anybody failed an inspection?
Since we started, mostly everybody, except for maybe one, fails the first time. And then when we go back, they pass. We have a minimum of maybe 7 or 8 inspections monthly right now. That number has started increasing. And the ones who have failed initially has been mostly minimal. Didn't have a smoke detector. A window couldn't open, which we, again, are just doing safe and sanitary. We want to make sure if somebody has a fire, the windows are opening in that bedroom so they can get out. And a lot of homes did not initially require a smoke detector in each bedroom, which now it does require for each bedroom. So that's one of the changes that we're able to check on and make sure the people's outlets, the electrical outlets, is real basic on what we're checking, but these are basic, important things that if, something were to happen, that it would fall on that landlord at this point based off of the new laws as of July 1 also.
Very good. Members of council, you've heard some good dialogue. You've heard some good questions, concerns. What is your pleasure?
And if I may just
You
add
may.
too, unrelated, separate from the rental ordinance, there are the requests to advertise for a public hearing for the 2015 building code
Adoption.
to be updated entire, in the.
Keep our ordinance current. Keep our ordinance current.
Yes, and also, apparently the state did not have the record of us appointing Dean Lewis, so we do need to do that again too, just adopting him as the town's.
And the planning commission will be named the appeals board?
Does this council have the authority to change the 15-day period rule?
Yeah.
To where, say, if someone does, as Mr. Jackson said, someone does move in, okay, but they can still get inspected that following week. I mean, and not fail, as we've been told by the building inspector. Is there a way that we can do that?
We don't work with anybody.
But what if they fail though?
Well,
if
then
they-
he gets a certain amount of days to correct, I mean,
Yeah.
most people are not gonna move in if there's, as Ms. Wilson said, it's standard stuff that they're checking.
Right.
So, I mean, if it's a smoke detector that's missing that Mr. Jackson fails, I'm sure there'll be a smoke detector in there by.
Why can't these inspections take place when people are, so the Joneses moved in, okay? You may prefer to inspect it while it's empty. Well, tough luck. The Joneses are in there. Let's go walk around, look and
Well,
see.
that's- if we can clarify that, I would feel comfortable with doing it.
We need
Yeah.
to talk to Dean. If Dean has made that
Yeah.
comment to you, then we need to find out.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was this week.
And if he has made that comment about automatically failing, I'd like to know on what grounds
What
he got that
grounds did he
from.
make that comment? Absolutely, Mr. Morgan.
If I may just comment from a legal standpoint, what the existing ordinances in the town of Blackstone, and this, our adoption of the ordinance doesn't change that at this point unless we decide we want to change that. But specifically what it says is the existing ordinance after January 1st, 1999, no owner or managing agent of any residential rental dwelling or dwelling unit located in a conservation district, which is the districts that we discussed of this article, shall permit a change in occupancy of any dwelling or dwelling unit, or permit a new tenant or tenants to occupy the unit that's vacant unless the dwelling or dwelling unit shall be the subject of a valid certificate of exemption or temporary waiver. So, in plain English, what
It
that means
says we're
is-
allowed to temporarily until there's an inspection done, it sounds like.
Well, a temporary waiver doesn't necessarily mean, what common sense dictates, but bottom line is, I think there is some wiggle room in the code, maybe that's something we could talk to
Yeah,
Dean
maybe.
about to see, because it doesn't, at least in our ordinance, it doesn't specify that 15 days, but I don't know,
What would be the difference if I lived in this dwelling and I raised an issue and said, there's a problem here, you're not gonna kick me out and inspect
Yeah,
it?
you need to leave, Tom, before let's suspect,
So
yeah,
what's the
correct.
difference?
Yeah.
It's no different. It's a good one.
At that point, it's just, like if somebody was to call the town cannot respond to that, they would be referred to the county. So then it's coming to Dean as the building code
Right.
inspector.
As a complaint.
And that's the property maintenance.
Do you want to move forward, council, adopt and continue to try to keep perfecting this as we continue to do some good things? I mean, I'm hearing that some good things are taking place with these inspections.
Can we continue as is and then till we clarify the issue with being able to go ahead and move in? And then we'll come back to it next month
I like
to
that.
clarify. the-
Let's, Mr. Nash, you want to just move, make it motion, state,
Okay, hold on, okay, so do we wanna make the motion tonight to clarify zone A and zone B? We're good with that, right?
yeah, we can adopt zone A, zone B.
And
So
then-
moved.
And then the appeals board as the planning commission,
That's part two.
yes?
Yeah.
You good with that?
And part three would be the adopt the 2015 building code,
or advertise for public hearing.
advertise for a hearing on that, and then also formally name Dean Lewis as the town's contact.
Yes. So those,
Can we move all of that at one time?
You just did. That's beautiful.
You just,
Is there a second to Mr. Nash's motion?
I'd say.
Mr. Miller has seconded.
okay, now, hold on, before we go any further, tell me in the minutes so I can have it clarified, what is zone A and what is zone B?
Anything east or west of
And it's right
Okay, so
here.
east is gonna be what?
of Main Street.
East.
will be B.
But will that be A or will that be B?
B. That's B.
East will be B,
Yes, and then west is A.
Okay.
west is A.
State law requires that, to have two zones. We're not trying to be cute. We're already plenty cute tonight.
And Yvonne, we know you've done a lot of work and we certainly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And not trying to make things harder for you, we're just trying to thank you for what you do.
And there have been some horror stories, not involving people in this room tonight, but there have been some really shocking discoveries made in the last couple of years of mainly homes. It just, we had a home that didn't have a wooden floor in places, didn't have heat and didn't have plumbing. And that was that one actually, there was one that was owner occupied, but there have been some renter occupied as well because they're
They have no
desperate.
other option.
They're desperate.
Some
And the
people
rents
can't,
are
some
what they
people
can
can't
afford.
afford anything else, so that's one thing you gotta look at.
It's
We're trying to
$350 and
help.
$400 a month. All right, Mr. Nash has moved, Mr. Miller has seconded for us to continue moving forward, but to do the things that our attorney advised us to do tonight. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, we will get into your minutes. We have the regular council meeting of June 17th and the special call meeting 2 nights later. They're in your packet for review.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt both batches of minutes. Any questions or concerns? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We have one visitor on the agenda and 2 others not listed, but our leadoff tonight is Miss Jenny Davis Bunn. She is our new chair of the Sea Park Committee.
She doesn't know what she's getting into.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi. So we had our first committee meeting a couple of weeks ago, and those members currently are Jennifer Daniel, Myra Quick, Zach Whitlow, and Janet Matthews. They volunteered. So if you know anybody else who wants to be on the committee, send them my way. But what we're looking at right now is just how can we beautify the park, kind of restore her to her glory. And there are some improvements we think that could be made, starting with no more Christmas in July or June or May. But so the buildings that are in the park, I think, Jennifer, you emailed pictures of those. And so I don't know if you all saw them, but they're not in very good condition. We think that they do not add to they did at one time, but I think they're past their time. And so we would like for them to be removed. And Mr. Daniels, Bobby Daniels, understand, donated those at one time. And so we certainly don't want to offend him, so we would want to go about it in the right way. But, I mean, that's something that I need to bring before you guys.
Removed and refurbished or removed for good?
I don't
Gone,
think they
bye-bye.
do
For good.
refurbished.
For good, okay.
Yeah.
Because they do serve a purpose at Christmas. They are, when they're lit. At least I think they do. Am I right? Or
Some you can't even see through the plexiglass anymore.
It's faded,
It's
okay.
so-
Sorry, so council would need to declare that property, it was given. I guess you have to declare it surplus and,
Given to the town and possessed by the town.
how many, this is a dumb question. I said, how many different buildings are there in the park? 10, 5? I'm trying to think. There's a Shiloh Baptist Church. I think Shiloh did the white church building that was in pretty good shape at one time.
There's at least 8, right, Jennifer?
But the white church building now, is that among those you want to get rid of? Because that was in pretty good shape.
We don't want any of those buildings in the park.
Okay,
If you want to bring it out at Christmas time, now that's a different story.
okay.
But keeping it there year-round is not necessarily, because it is really cute, the church is.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's one that stands out in my mind.
But we don't necessarily want it there all year.
Okay.
Well, let me check with our church, we might want to take it back.
Or store doing,
Store it, yeah.
Okay.
So we don't want you to throw it away.
Yeah, and we don't want to throw it away. That's why we're here, to see, like, what do you want to do with them? I don't know if Mr. Daniels doesn't want them back, or the other people who donated them. Would they be able to be sold? Some people will buy anything.
this is something we would normally refer to the Buildings and Properties Committee, but we also can make a decision tonight if that's your pleasure. I mean, it might free, I guess you're thinking it would free up a lot of space. Maybe it's gotten to the point where it's visual clutter. Most of them, it's a lot of visual clutter. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it's not adding to the beauty.
You've heard the request. Any thoughts? Would you like me to refer to Buildings and Properties so to give us time to communicate with Mr. Bobby Daniels and perhaps Shiloh?
I think one of the discussions too was, if not get rid of all of them, maybe put them in one central location as like a little village.
That wasn't my discussion.
Okay, that was not.
I'm gonna refer this to Buildings and Properties. I'm gonna refer this
You're
to
just
Buildings
moving
and
the
Properties
blank.
with heavy input from the town manager on this. Yeah, and Ms. Thompson has a question.
Well, have y'all considered going into the different wards to beautify?
That's a different committee.
Yeah, she's also on
that's it.
beautification. She's strictly Sea Park tonight.
Oh, okay, you do have a committee for that,
We do have a beautification committee.
that will go into the
We've
neighborhood.
talked about trash pickup contests and all kinds of things. We've
Yeah,
talked-
one,
Well,
one property at a time.
Jimmy
but-
Johnson's the chair of that. We've done
Pardon?
that.
Yeah, I'm not the chair of that. That's Jimmy Johnson.
Oh, okay.
And Mr. Taylor and I are proud members of that committee. I'm going to refer this to Buildings and Properties with
In
Ms.
the
Hasbro.
meantime, discuss with Mr. Daniels, you know, if they want the buildings, if not, then we'll
Do you
surplus
know
them.
if any of the other buildings are owned by other people?
Blackstone Primary, Marshall, the Gifted and Talented has a building they adopt and they really proudly decorate. I could see maybe some of these schools or teachers maybe want to take it on as a project to maybe refurbish it. I'm just thinking out loud because I know the Gifted and Talented do take a lot of pride in decorating the one near not far from the nativity scene in the back part of the park.
Well, to refurbish them, it's going to take some work. And then it's the issue of when Christmas is over, what are we doing with them?
Okay.
You know, we've got Christmas lights up in the park year round. There's still Christmas wreaths and garland in a nativity scene.
All right. We're going to refer this to Buildings and Properties Committee.
Now, let me clarify
Yes.
that the nativity scene is something different, okay?
That's not a house.
Correct.
It's gonna be rebuilt this year too, so.
Okay.
So we're talking about the houses and also this would,
This includes Santa house too. That thing's atrocious. Yeah, I think we need to replace it.
Is that the great big one over back by the parking lot? We can talk about possible options for that. I mean, that's not really out in the park
that's a
as much as
permanent
all the
structure
other
too
ones
more than the
are.
other ones though. And then the Santa house, the White House with the red shutters behind the library, that's a house. I mean, when I say house, that's,
With the
It's
windows
big.
are dry
Yeah.
rot and.
okay. So
It's been graffiti.
at night it looks so good. I tell you what, that's why I love Christmas at night. All right, we're referring this to Buildings and Properties and anything else. We want to thank you for taking on this project.
Thank you.
Jenny sees things, a lot of things that I don't see, and I commend her for that. She's got good eyes.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be talking to you soon.
Okay.
On item number 2, I had a delegation, they may have a spokesperson on, I believe it's a contingent that would like some water beyond town limits on Cox Road. And I see we have a volunteer spokesperson, yes. You want some of that good Blackstone water out that way, don't you? Who couldn't? How could you not?
Yes, good afternoon to Town Council meetings, and thank you for the opportunity for us to address you tonight. I'm Linda Turner Hines. I'm one of the property owners at 2127 Cox Road in Blackstone, along with my 2 sisters, Berthel Turner Epps and Loretta Turner Miller. We also have the Hawks family also that lives off of Cox Road that's here tonight as well. What we are asking is that we respectfully request the town's consideration of extending the Blackstone water supply and service beyond the town limits to Fort Pickett interest on Cox Road. There are approximately about 20 residents and businesses along that route. We've had the opportunity to talk to several of them, not all, and that's something that we would like to do, but those that we've spoken to so far have expressed interest and support in doing so, having that extended. So why do we want this? Because we've all been on well water for quite a while. According to U.S. News and World Report published in 2017, Nottoway County has 62% of its drinking water deemed unsafe, compared to the national median of 5.3%. So that's almost 12 times more. The state median is 3%, and Nottoway's peer groups, which are other rural counties, is 10.6%. So we're at 62%. In 2013, there was a study done by Virginia Cooperative Extension, and I have copies of that I would like to leave with each of the members tonight. They performed a clean drinking water clinic in Nottoway, where 44 samples were tested, which represented about 99 individuals. 96% of those samples were from well water. The findings from that, they had high levels of copper, lead, and total chloroform bacteria. 43.2% reported observed issues in water supplies such as blue or green or rusty staining, as well as objectionable odors. 65% of the samples had total chloroform, and 13.6% of those had E. coli. And as you all know, E. coli can be deadly and disease-producing. We as well have experienced water staining, odd-smelling water, the inability to use the water for cooking, brushing your teeth, or either washing clothes due to the staining or bathing. So in summary, what we're asking is we would like to actually partner with the town of Blackstone to secure this vitally important need to overcome environmental hazards. And we do see this as a true health issue. The residents and businesses are asking for your consideration and understanding of the expectations of the residents and businesses for making the request. So again, thank you for the opportunity to bring this really critically important issue to your attention and your review and consideration of our request.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. One thing that, I don't really have a question, but just a statement. The numbers you just relayed to us, I do not know why the County of Nottoway and/or the Virginia Department of Health have not issued a alert
Yes.
to the people of Nottoway County beyond the towns. That is bothersome information, and I thank you for sharing that with us. Members of council, some of you may see us staring at a big document. We do have a cost estimate the town managers presented to us of a major expansion of the water line going out to where you recommend. And Mr. Van Roobeck, I believe the total cost if the town were to do it all on its own is 1.4 million, is that right?
And this is best case scenario.
Right.
This is making assumption that no booster station or storage would be required.
Right.
And, but this is basically laying line, making connections to the houses, and putting fire hydrants on the line, $1.4 million. There are a couple things that I think.
Share with the audience, because we've discussed, you have been a advocate of this, I know.
I like the idea, but I think the county has to partner, if not financially, I think the county has to partner. We can't have a water line, for a couple of reasons, that doesn't have any connections. We may be able to serve 2 or 3 houses at the end, but if you've got water that sits stagnant in a water line, you're not helping the situation, you're exacerbating the situation. If you remember, the town failed a couple back T-tests here in town because of lack of chlorination. When you have water that sits too long and is not used and recycled, and this would be a deadhead line, it doesn't circulate. We got to have, if not everybody, almost everybody connected using water on that line.
Talking about mandatory connections, and the question is going to be whether the County Board of Supervisors is going to graciously let the Blackstone force people to hook up.
Those numbers.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think you have to force anybody after reading those numbers. I think there'll be, but there is a fee to hook up.
The town currently charges for a residential connection. We'll just assume the businesses there would only need a residential type connection. I don't know of anybody, a big user in the area, but 3/4 inch, maybe the Eagles Club could use a larger one.
Wilburn Store.
Wilburn Store, perhaps they use enough. A 3/4 inch service connection for water in Blackstone town limits is $800. That's the tap fee, plus you pay the materials and labor to have it installed.
Out of town.
Out of town is double.
Double.
Yeah, so 3/4 inch would be $1,600.
Right, now, do these people also, we have sewer lines already run out there, don't we?
No.
We don't.
We all stop right there.
So we're just talking water tonight, just talking water.
Sewer, you're gonna look at a much bigger
Sewer
expense
probably a little
because
more.
of
We're just
gravity.
talking
Right.
water because of the health issue. And I think they're at Williams Electric Building that's sitting vacant.
Yeah.
If you noticed when they were building the bridge, they had a porta john sitting out there because their well just doesn't, it's like a half a gallon minute well. It's just really not a big. It's a big expense, and I think we have to partner. I think there'd be some grant monies available. I think the town literally in 2003 applied for a self-help grant at DHCD.
After the drought, yes, that's right, it was a big drought.
Big drought, and the town applied, and I think that ultimately after it rained, everybody lost interest.
Yep.
But that was the basis for this cost estimate that we.
So if you can do this, would you still be doubling the charge for people outside of town?
We doubled
You have to
we
to
had
get your cost.
50%.
For what?
To get your project cost back, you'd have to.
Or what about if we can get some type of grants for that?
Yeah, that would be figured in.
If grants are awarded, we're not allowed to charge tap fees
Correct.
for anybody in town or out of town. If there's a low, moderate income component to it and DHCD participate, we have to waive all the tap fees. That's part of our in-kind contribution.
Clean Water Act has a
on
grant.
Church Street or East End or any of that sort of thing. So that would apply here if we can find some grant money. But I don't know if there's $1.4 million laying around.
Right.
But there may be something with DHCD, and that would waive the tap fees automatically.
I think there also there's a federal program. Virginia the Clean Water Act, I think, has a program, I'm pretty sure. I'd like to, with common consent of council, authorize staff to move forward in identifying possible grant sources, and that would also allow Mr. Lubeck to talk, if he wishes, to the county of Nottaway.
Yeah.
And see if
I'd
we
like to
can
write him a
partner.
letter and ask him about mandatory connection.
Yep.
And I know, I don't want it to be ham-handed and controversial.
No.
But I do think you gotta get some folks on that line or,
Get a survey going to all property owners out there currently and get that fairly quick
Absolutely.
to see.
Would it also help to get all of that information right there to each property owner that's gonna be affected by this?
We can provide.
That's the best sales pitch ever, is those numbers. There's no doubt about that. We thank y'all for coming. Like I said, these are,
And I would like to leave the.
Please do.
Report that I quoted the stats from it. We were, like I said, able to speak with several residents today, actually had even signed showing that they were in support of this. Of course, in the middle of the day, this sort of thing, trying to get people, we weren't able to catch everybody. But it is our intent to go back and try to do that, but if the town could continue that survey, it would be great.
I'd like to see a survey of
I would
every
too.
resident on that
Right.
road.
Thank you so much.
thank you so much, too.
If I may just real quick answer Mr. Morgan's question.
Yes,
Part of the reason why the town charges out-of-town customers 50% more for water, 50% more for sewer, increased tap fees and all that sort of thing, is that in the event we ever have another annexation, perhaps, and this is probably the most compelling argument, if we ever expanded our boundaries and the judge had to consider the pros and cons of what the residents are getting, one of the things we can say is, yes, you'll be paying more taxes, but you're paying radically less water and sewer. And
That's correct.
I think is some of the rationale.
that helped tonight, too. And our third visitor that I had on the agenda is, and she's been to the podium several times tonight already, very well, and that is Yvonne Wilson. She wanted, I think you have a date change for your community day and a street
Yes.
closure.
Yes. So you all have the copy of the flyer with the date change that we requested for the community event will take place on August the 17th. And you all already gave us approval for the property. Thank you very much. So what I'm asking for tonight is in reference to having the street blocked during that period of time, 1 hour prior to beginning and 1 hour prior to the end of the event. So pretty much it'd be from 12 to 5. And the street block would take place from Birch to School.
On
and-
Harris.
On Harris Street,
Okay.
yes.
That's a Saturday.
That would be a Saturday.
This is a community day, is that what it's called?
Yes, it's the Unity in the Community
Unity in the Community.
Fest.
All right.
We want everybody to come out and have a good time.
I'd entertain a motion to close the street on August 17th from 12 to 5 and to also approve that date change. Motion made by Mr. Nash, second by Mr. Morgan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 7-0. I may move our agenda here in just a minute. Do we have any other visitors tonight? And we're not scheduled to speak, but I felt the need. I'd like to, if we don't mind, just because we have a large delegation from the Armory, if we can move, we have 2 Armory requests under unfinished business. We have a business plan for the Armory, and there's a request for 2 events in the Armory. I'd like to take unfinished business number 3 first. You have a request in your packet from Mr. Osborne. They would like to schedule with council and the public a open house. I think that, and I feel it, just.
Mayor Wood, I'm running a little late with funeral traffic last week and everything.
Right.
I do have some pictures, if you don't have Facebook, and I have 3 sets of them I'd like to pass on tonight.
Okay.
So I'm gonna, see, maybe just share them. Sure. More here too. Yeah, if you can pass it down, Mr. Miller didn't put it in my hand. For some reason. I didn't never touch it.
I'm looking at it.
Anyway, I want to thank everybody for allowing us to work on the building as you know, we started on it in December and November, and we got run out for cold weather. We couldn't paint in cold weather. I'm very mighty proud. There's 6 people here tonight. Richard Eaton, Mary Ann, Fireball, as I like to call her, Kathy, Bill, and our youngest man, Blake. I'd like y'all to stand up. They've been working their butts off the last few months. As I mentioned to the committee the other day, we figure we have done about $30,000, between $20,000 and $30,000 in kind repairs to the Armory.
I want to give y'all a round of applause, and thank you.
Mark's not here. Man, Mark's not here. Mark is a silent person. As you know, Mark, Cindy's husband, was has been also one of the person, Robert Thomas. Robert's
Yes.
done a lot of painting also, and it's been very, very invaluable. It's just been a team effort. One reason we wanted to invite you all over is pictures do not, just absolutely do not do it.
Do you have a date in mind? I was thinking maybe
I
a
don't have any
Wednesday in
date mind
August.
Because, listen, I have been in front of y'all for 20 years. I can never judge when y'all have got extra time. I'm at your convenience, not my convenience. So that's why I wanted to bring this up tonight.
Does council have
I
any
don't know-
problem with a Wednesday in August for an open house? At the Armory, which should be open to the public as well?
Yeah, we'd like to do that, like maybe even use Code Red, let the public know about it, or advertise it. We'd like everybody to see what we have before.
What's the
before
third
Arts and
Wednesday in
Crafts.
August?
I made you put your glasses on.
August the 21st? Let's do August
Do August
21st at,
21st. I can try that, sure. I don't have any problem with August 21st.
let's do August 21st at, well, make it, 7 o'clock is gonna always be business, friendly for the people who commute. And then we do have a lot of people in Blackstone that commute.
We've got, one of the members already cooked some barbecue. We have
Hold on,
a little
let me make sure, does council have any objection with the Armory having an open house in the town building on Wednesday, August the 21st? At 7 o'clock. I'd like a motion by council to that effect. All right, so the motion is made and second to allow an open house on that date. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. I want to take care of that first because that's a little less, that's a little,
Certainly.
the other one may involve a little more discussion. You've got the wrestling, the Bruiser Wrestling Federation.
The, Mayor, as you know, and like I said, I wasn't sure which one you were gonna take on next. The Bruiser people had worked with the fire department through the years off and on, and had used the Memorial Center a couple of times, had used Nottaway Senior High School a few times for us, and they reached out to me, they said they really didn't get a good crowd at Nottaway the last few times, they wanted to try something different, and wanted to know, could they use the Armory? They offered us a donation, and, to use the building, $500 to use the building, is what they said, and, wanted me to request it. They're a highly regulated industry, believe it or not.
They have their own insurance.
They have their own, well, no, they don't have their own insurance, but everybody's required to sign a waiver of liability. All the restaurants are that night. Each have to sign this waiver of liability. It covers everything, and it's hard to read this, but your business name, personal, any partners, Virginia professional occupation, Commonwealth Virginia property owners, affiliate sponsors, everything supposedly, this is a blanket thing that, I mean, obviously they go to places and
Well, they've
throw
been
chairs
at the
each
high
other's-
school.
Yeah.
They've been at the high school, and they want to change venue and come to the
They
town.
want to try this, and they have to have a 30-day notice to file paperwork.
Did they have a
with the
date
state.
set yet?
No, because they have to have a 30-day notice
Okay.
to file a notice with the state. So once, if they get an okay, then they would file papers for, let's say, the 25th of August, because that would be, I think, the Saturday or the Friday. I believe is what
You're
they
looking at a
mentioned.
Friday, or upcoming Friday or Saturday.
And they obviously like to hit the first of the month, and that's one reason they'd asked for it earlier, and I told them they couldn't do it till this group looked at it and approved it or didn't approve it.
Okay.
And we would basically do all the chairs. We've asked Rotary to partner with us to make the money from the concessions, because that's where all the money is, concessions. We just want the building to run well. We're concerned that I'm not ready for arts and crafts. We got new restrooms. We want to kind of run some people through it, make sure everything works well.
Okay.
And that's kind of like a test subject.
So the request before this council is to use the town building, the Armory, to host a wrestling event. The same organization has been in the high school for the last several years. And also they also held an event in 2005 at the Blackstone Memorial Center.
Okay.
They had Jimmy the Boogie Woogie Man Valiant.
There you go.
I do like wrestling.
Do they know that obviously there's no AC?
They know it's OAC, and they're cheap. They're cheap fun, So we have to have all the doors open for fire exits anyway and fans. So it is the way it is that night. So we have 4 doors open and fans. Well, Armory's never had air conditioning, and I watched Haystack Calhoun in there when I was about 8 years old.
How about insurance on the towns? And we've got blanket VML insurance. If council wishes to allow this, how do we stand with insurance?
Well, I was a little surprised when Max said that they don't have liability insurance, and our insurance carrier specifically said, don't do it if the group does not have liability.
Well, I don't know if they don't. They just said they've always operated with this, and I don't know.
Okay.
So I can have.
Can we
them
talk to
reach
the
out.
school system and just find out what they've done?
We can. I'm certain. I've only dealt with them with the fire department in the Memorial Center at one time.
Because
so
the
I don't
school
know
system insurance,
if
they won't even let people do open gyms.
Earlier.
What did the school
It's
charge?
hard to read, but it.
I don't know. That's why I'd like to get some information on that.
Certainly, I don't want to put them off 30 days because it puts them into September, and they can't. They'll miss it if it's September. So that's just where we're at. But and I'm not asking, got to do it tonight either. I just don't know what to do. I just.
If we can talk to the school systems, like I said, I watched it. I was shocked to find out that the school system, and no one was fibbing. They had it in paperwork. some people want to do an open gym with some volunteers. And the liability, the insurance company for the school system says, do not do it. Even if they sign a waiver, the waiver's not worth the paper it's written on. It makes everybody feel good. So I'd like to find out what they did with what the Bruiser Wrestling Federation and the school system did to protect each other. Before
Must
we
have done something. I mean, there's.
Right.
Could we do it based on some crosses, some T's and dots some I's and maybe
And
get
that's up to
Philip or
council.
somebody to.
I don't object to that, but I just want to make sure that we know what we're getting into.
I want you all to be able to. Okay.
I know that,
Okay.
yeah. I love pro
We've
wrestling.
had people ask us about, and one reason we asked about the open house was some people asked us about birthday parties and things like that, and we really don't know what to do because we can only do so much. It's like a big 3-season room
I understand.
right now, if you can kind of picture that.
Currently, it's still up to us, so I make the motion to allow the use pending satisfactory liability insurance and.
Who would get the $500, the Armor Group or the town of Blackstone?
Whoever you like.
It all goes to the same, I mean,
We're spending it back in the building. We're not gonna buy beer with it. Okay, so, I mean, you know, it's, would you like a copy of that too?
All right, Mr. Ness, you're moving to approve Mr. Rogers' request pending review of insurance and consultation with the school system.
correct.
Is it?
Yeah.
I hate to be a whip blanket, guys, but do we need to have it inspected? It's never been inspected for public use, and things like fire entrances, mother lawns, all these things that we've talked about tonight. I think there needs to be some component to that.
Dean Lewis do that, like issue a certificate of occupancy?
Dean has been working with me for the renovation, and he said other than the front door, we were good, but we've installed fire extinguishers, and there's no change of venue, and there's no change of ownership.
Okay.
Have we ever had it
Inspection's
inspected
not
for the arts and
required.
crafts?
Let's get a
wine
clean bill
festival.
of health from Dean.
Yeah.
Saying that it's usable, and the insurance company gave us a whole.
You want to include that in your motion? Because we did have arts and crafts there last year in the wine
Got
festival.
arts and crafts and wine, I mean, you've got things going on, so you, there's really not much more liability in a woman breaking a leg in arts and crafts than a wrestler breaking his leg,
Because
so
get
so I
ready
think
for
it's all the same
If he
thing.
says that we can't use it for Bruiser Wrestling Federation, what's gonna happen if we say, hey, you can't use it for the arts and crafts?
I would say if
ready.
well, and this might be exercise we need to do anyway, so.
It's not a thing in that building against code right now, based on the